tides, and during the winter, you know, those tides can get a little violent and they can flood areas that are below sea level, but people decide to build their houses there anyway, but that's another story. So what they do is they drill pilings into the ground, and then it's on a concrete slab at ground level, and then there's a concrete foundation. The foundation is actually above ground, and then there's stilts on the pilings, and then the house is built on top of that. We have blowout panels, so if it floods, the concrete panels, which provide extra structural rigidity, but you don't need that thing to stand up to do that. They will blow out if the hydraulic pressure inside the foundation, because the flooding gets to be too much. Same concept here. The rocket engines firing will blow these aluminum panels out. They'll fly out. In fact, I'm not sure if you can see them here, but we'll check. Let's see if you see the panels blow out. Let's look at it. Let's do a frame by frame. No, it looks like they didn't have the panels in there. Unless they got obliterated right there, which is entirely possible. Most things that are behind or looking at the business end of a rocket engine when it fires, most things don't survive. You won't find any pieces of them. That's how powerful rocket engines are. But you can see clearly the exhaust is going through the Starliner aft skirt right there, right? And then when the capsule gets high enough, the thrusters, which are pointed out so they could point through Starliner's center of mass, the thrusters exhaust eventually goes outside of that skirt. ULA designed the aero skirt to extend Starliner aerodynamic surface, which enhances the aerodynamic characteristics and loads on the Atlas V for unique crude configuration. And they also did this to provide the vent, what EJ's talking about. Yeah, Rocket, that's my second thing. Now, keep in mind that is more of a fix for having to put this thing on there, okay? So what I'll do is we'll go into... I'll file this under Atlas V research pictures.
Sua mente inquieta distrai.
So we'll go in here and little word on aerodynamics. So what do I always say about aerodynamics, guys?
E aí, pessoal, bora começar mais uma live agora.
It doesn't matter if it's a car on the ground, an airplane
Na
flying at 30,000 feet,
não
a
estava
stunt
ligado,
plane flying at
mas
500 feet, the space
teve
shuttle coming back from a mission,
Renek que
or a rocket
ficou
being launched into space.
nos 10 minutos de jogo,
Okay?
5/0,
It's like, what are you talking about?
até aí, mas o resto, as outras lanes ganharam, então aí deu pra segurar. Mas no final, cataram 5 dragas de água. Aí o Renek ficava regenerando 300 de vida por segundo. Aí não tinha que fazer muito não. Aí o Renek conseguiu segurar. O Renek segurou, sabe, de 4, 5 para matar o Renek.
The fundamental difference here is that water is not compressible, air is. Okay? So air doesn't like to turn.
A Vila
Okay?
BR,
So if you've ever
obrigado
ridden
pelo
in a
follow.
boat and the boat is going relatively fast, say you're going like 20 knots. If you look back, there's like a cavity where the boat hull was, and then the water collapses in on itself, right? Like, because water likes to stay undisrupted as well, because it's under the force of gravity. But that rockets have something very similar to that. And at the end of the
Valeu
day,
pelo
the big
follow.
thing that you gotta understand
Bom, agora
is that
vamos
aerodynamics
mais uma.
doesn't matter what it is. Air doesn't
Vamos
like
de
to turn.
Caitlyn
This is
agora
why drag gets induced on
com
vehicles.
Soraka
So
de
if you have
suporte.
air coming at this,
O Trindamer
you have air coming at this rocket, right?
tá bem
going this
chatinho
way.
de jogar. O
Right?
Trindamer
What
tá bem
happens is,
baixinho. Ah, é, vou tá.
all these
Deixa
lines, right? Say
videozinho aí pra
this is like the natural state of air,
não
right?
ficar
The lines are,
sem
say the
som
lines
nenhum.
being like, you know,
Bom,
this distance apart
aí
from each
na-
other is ambient pressure, okay? What happens is all these lines get bottled up against each other, okay? It forces the air this way. All these lines get really, really close, okay? And keep in mind, there's no
só o
lines in
Trindamer,
aerodynamics.
é só
This
acampar o
is just
Trindamer essa
representing
partida,
airflow.
só que
This
tá
is
bom.
not what it looks like. If you want to see what air, a good representation of what air looks like, look up like CFD simulation.
Tem muita gente
right?
jogando Trindamer
So,
agora.
because the air doesn't like to turn, the air ain't gonna do this, okay? It's not gonna go directly down like that. It's not gonna do that. It's not gonna go this way. What it's gonna do is it's gonna go out
É,
like
Trindamer
this,
maestria 7. Pô, o
it's gonna
time deles
wait.
metade tá com maestria 7.
right? Because air doesn't turn,
Metade.
okay? It doesn't like to turn. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna get an inherent pocket of low pressure right here. All right? Especially at higher speeds, where the air gets thinner and it moves faster, that pressure you'll get a lot of drag. That low pressure right next to that extremely high pressure right here, right, is going to cause a lot of drag. Anytime you have high pressure right next to low pressure, it makes vortexes. It makes vortexes coming off the side of the vehicle. Vortexes cause drag. It's basically when air swirls like this.
Bora lá.
Vortices, yeah. I always get it confused, Rocky Guy, with vortexes and vertices. But vertexes is something from the 3D world, but that's another story.
Até hoje eu não sei o que essa Kiana faz.
So what
Só sei
happens
que é pra não ficar perto da...
why the aft skirt is
parede
here
com
is
ela.
for the same exact reason. So I'm gonna not save this and we're gonna open it up again.
30
Right?
segundos para a liberação das
Watch.
tropas.
So let's look at the rest of the vehicle.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
O que será que a passiva da
Kermit,
Kiana
7-month
faz?
resub. Thanks, man. I'm trying to zoom in at an angle where you guys can see it. So, air doesn't like to turn. So that air is going to come off the Starliner capsule and it's going to come down like this. This is what they say. Like, people can sit here and say, oh, it's for, you know, aerodynamic loads. It's to stabilize aerodynamic loads. Well, basically, you don't want this thing creating a lot of drag, okay? You don't want this thing creating too much drag. Too much drag at the front of your rocket is like
Ih,
attaching
NASA
a
está
piece of
off.
plywood to the
Mais
front of your car
mais remake.
that your coefficient of
Pô,
drag
hoje foi
will go down.
triste,
It's
foram
hoping
3
that you're more
remakes já.
aerodynamic. A flat
Só
board at
hoje.
the front of a car really is not good for aerodynamics. Ask the second generation Dodge Charger that question. Yeah, it's not really aerodynamic having a big vacuum cleaner hole at the front of your car. So, what happens is the air is going to come on the capsule like this. It's going to be
3
We'll
remakes
have
só
that
hoje.
constant pressure right here. But what this thing is designed to do is make it so the air doesn't go in here and bounce off the Centaur stage. Because this stuff like that happens. You don't want the air coming around like
Nasus
this and
voltou.
hitting the Centaur. This is basically trying to keep the Centaur,
Mas o top deles também não tá aí
quote
não.
unquote, to speak in Kerbal terms. Alright? So what this is
Um
going
bot.
to do is it's going to stabilize the air. The air, instead of doing this, if the skirt wasn't there, and bouncing off and creating a huge pocket of low pressure up here, that low pressure pocket is minimized, alright? It's minimized because of this. So the air, which once again, doesn't like to turn, the air's going to come at this thing, and it's going to go like this.
Headshot.
This thing basically forces the air to go back straight. It forces it to go straight down.
Pô, que bizarro, não tem ADC e nem
It
top.
forcing the air to go straight down like
Os dois
that is
caíram.
going to be enough to make the
E o
air
Nasus
go
não
this
voltou ainda
way.
também.
Basically, they're avoiding that air coming back in and hitting the center.
É, como sempre, o LoL, um jogo com uma infraestrutura absurda.
Starliner is a different core diameter than the Centaur stage, right? It's different.
Ah,
And ULA wants to use the, you know, they
Tô
wanted
errando
to,
o
they
farm
didn't- I mean, they
sozinho.
could easily put this inside of a 5-meter fairing and create a Atlas, you know, 522 booster with Starliner aboard. Because that would keep the core diameter kind of the same. But it was easier to do it this way. Because the ULA's iconic ISAs cheaper
mais
than
um
the
remake!
cylindric ISA that they use for the
Terceiro
other
ou
versions of
quarto
Atlas.
do dia.
So that basically makes it so this
Mais
air
um
goes this
remake.
way instead. It funnels the air straight down, okay? And once again, this is how real aerodynamics work. It funnels this air straight. It basically stabilizes it and makes it so the air doesn't collapse back in on the Centaur
Bora
stage.
dar.
Because if it did, right?
Bora
If it
ajudar.
did, and it came down here, and you hit the conic interstage adapter, right? You hit the conic ISA, the air would go this way again. And it would provide more drag down here, okay? That's why, even though it looks really weird, with aerodynamics, you don't necessarily need to... You don't need... Just because, you know, you can aerodynamically occlude something, right? Right? You can aerodynamically occlude something, and it doesn't have to be inside of a fairing or something. You could play tricks with the aerodynamics, right? So this aft skirt on Starliner is designed to vector the air straight down, okay? You don't want the Starliner pushing all the air out of the way and then having it come back in, because it will. That's what will happen. It'll shoot out like this, right? Once again, air doesn't like to turn, so it's not like the air is going to do this, right? It's not like it's going to go back and forth like that. If that aft skirt wasn't there, the air would go out here and then it would mean, it doesn't like to turn, but it also doesn't like pressure differentials. So it would come back down like this, and it would hit the centaur halfway down the centaur stage. That could provide that could
Bora
cause
dar
all sorts of
follow,
problems.
galera.
The centaur is not designed to have arrow loads being pushed on it
Bora
that way.
ajudar.
It's not designed for that. It's not designed to have air hitting it right at the
Bora
bulkhead
dar
point
follow,
between the,
galera. Bora. Ih, o microfone tá...
It's not designed to have air hit it right there.
Está alto,
So
né?
once again, what this skirt does, what the aft skirt does, is it takes the air that would otherwise, you know, push down and hit
Thank you.
the centaur
Obrigado
stage.
por
It
dar
makes it go
follow.
straight. It makes it go straight down. It
Avilambia.
vectors the air, it funnels the air that way, right? And once again, air doesn't like to turn. So keeping this straight right here, right? At different pressures, you might have some air
Vamos de
going in
catering
here, and
dessa
you are
vez
gonna have
agora.
low pressure in this area
Vamos de
right here.
catering.
That is going to happen one way or the other.
Agora
But
que nós
that is a funnel to
precisamos...
make sure that the air basically goes straight. Some air will come back down and hit
Nautilus
the ISA,
suporte,
no doubt.
WW. Bom,
Because once
tem
again,
dois...
you're going to have a lot of low pressure.
Tem dois que vai
The
aguentar a
skirt is enough
pancada,
to
então
make it so
vai
the
dar
air
bom.
coming back in is probably going to hit the
Ah,
top
eu
of the
odeio Soraka
CCD
com...
instead.
Soraka e Jean é...
The common core booster. It's probably going to... The air
Soraka
is
com
going
Jean
to
é
probably come back
complicado.
in here like this, right?
Tem que matar
Not
Soraka
turn
antes.
like that. It doesn't do that. We go 10, 12, 48,
Ah,
hut,
corta
primo.
cura
The
vai
air's gonna go like
ser
that.
de...
That's what it's there for.
Vai ser de segundo item.
That right there is trickery.
Senão,
It's aerodynamic
Soraka
trickery to get
Faz
a
o que ela quer.
thing that basically looks like it's not aerodynamically stable at all and get it to lower the center of pressure. I try to replicate this kind of stuff in Kerbal when we build fairings and whatnot. If this was Kerbal, obviously you don't have fluid dynamic simulation. So what I would do is I'd put this Centaur stage inside of a fairing. And ULA could do that, but the Atlas 5 with the Atlas 5 550 or 500 series fairings, but I'll bet you they weighed cost-benefit analysis and figured out it was easier to make this skirt than it was to install a 5-meter fairing on every single Starliner launch. It's probably cheaper to do it this way. So that's what they did. That's why that skirt's there. It's there to vector the air straight down parallel to the rocket instead of having the air come back in. And that is just enough. It's just enough to get the air to stay out and away from the Centaur stage. And that will inherently make the vehicle stable. This is the reason why nowadays, guys, rockets don't have fins. Like if you go back and look at like the Aggregate 4 or the V2, if you want to call it that, that's fine. I don't like rockets being used as weapon systems, so I call it what its civilian name was, which is not.
Bora lá. Vamos ver o pessoal.
I don't like rockets that come back down and hurt people. But if you look at like kind of a stereotypical rocket, right? You have wings that stabilize it down here. Well, they figured out that if you just make the rocket, the bottom of the rocket flat and keep the center of pressure low enough,
Tá com
right,
lag
you don't need
absurdo.
wings.
E é no
You
servidor
don't need
deles.
them. You don't need wings. And if you don't need to make wings, well, guess what? That's less parts of the rocket that you need to make. You
É,
can
o
rely
time
on
deles
aerodynamics to
tá...
help
O time deles
stabilize your
tá...
rocket.
Metade dessa
And
maestria.
once again, every time I go to try and build a new rocket in Kerbal, I try to mimic this. And that's why I close fairings on
razoável.
fairings.
Bom,
Because I'm trying to
Nada-
mimic
nada
that
demais.
exact effect. Remember how the week before Thanksgiving, I was really
É, o
getting
brand
into
é
trying to
prata
figure
1.
out how to close fairings on fairings?
Como que o brand é
Because
prata
closing
1?
fairings on fairings will mimic this effect.
Ó, deve ter outro
Fairings-
prata aqui.
Fairings take whatever they have inside of them, right? And if they're node
Agora-
attached to something, they'll take the drag that thing is making, and Kerbal will think about it, and it'll transmit the drag down the stack. So like if I have a fairing with a fuel tank and some engines at the back, and then we have payload inside of our fairing, right? The fairing will transmit that arrow down the stack. So, oh, this fairing makes this much drag, but Kerbal figures out that it's node attached to a fuel tank. There's a fuel tank behind it, so it's going to transmit the arrow down the stack. This is why node attachment is really useful in Kerbal. The little green and the dark like gray and green attachment things that you have in Kerbal, you want to use node attachment. Radial attachment thinks that it's just glued to the side, right? So if you have a fairing with a fairing closed in on it, right? It's taking the information from that fairing, transmitting it to the next fairing behind that, right? And then that is transmitting down the stack. So that makes it so you can use different size fairings, you can use different size fairing plates, you can use whatever you want, and the aerodynamics gets transmitted down the stack.
horrível, LOL.
You notice how
Demorando pra abrir.
my Gemstone 4 rocket never has any problems. Because
Tá com bastante lag hoje. Tive 3 disconnects hoje, só hoje.
To make sure that all the drag is going down the stack and getting transmitted at the back.
3 remakes, só hoje.
That's why my rockets don't use wings. Because I'm trying to, I figured out a way, closing fairings on fairings, right? And transmitting the aero forces down the stack to make it, to basically mimic
tem que tomar cuidado com esses nasos aí.
Like this. Heck, you could even get away in Kerbal. You could get away with this in Kerbal.
Peguei um Nasus ontem que fez 400 stacks em 15 minutos. Esse foi o recorde que eu vi. Até hoje. 400 em 15 minutos.
On the top of the stage, and then you made it go out and up and close on the back, it would do the same thing. It would transmit down the stack. Transmit the arrow down the stack. That's how, because once again, Kerbal is not real aerodynamics. It's close, but you can figure out ways to force the game to act like normal aerodynamics. Let's just hope the 17th is a good day so we can see what it's doing. Yeah, it moved to the 19th, Hellfish, but yeah, absolutely. Aerodynamics is cool, man. It's super freaking interesting how stuff
Eles vão roubar o head.
Check this out. You want to see something cool just on a side note? NASA took some infrared imaging of T-38 still breaking the sound barrier. Look at what the arrow does at super high speeds. When you start to hit transonic, right? Or when you start to break the speed of sound, you have an aerodynamic barrier. Basically, the air is getting hit. The plane is moving through the atmosphere so ridiculously fast that the air hits it and it bounces off. Flips and chips! Aerodynamic jump scare! The air, like, especially when you approach the sound barrier, the air is hitting that nose and it's getting compressed so hard that it shoots off to the side. This is the sound barrier. I mean, that's not the sound barrier. The sound barrier was thought to be this thing where if you tried to go faster than the speed of sound, you'd start breaking things. Turns out they just needed to invent jet engines to make that, to fix that problem. Another story. And also, what's crazy is that the air is getting so ridiculously compressed right at this point right here that it ionizes and it actually gets super hot. Re-entry. This is part of the reason why we don't have planes building stuff like Concorde is very, very difficult. Because the faster you go, the more air is going to ionize and hit the surface of the plane, and the hotter your plane's going to get. The hotter your plane gets, well, you're going to need thermal protection systems to mitigate that problem. Thermal protection systems usually cause drag. Space shuttle, I'm making it too. Dream Chaser, X-37, you guys, thermal protection systems doing a bunch of rocks to the outside of your airplane. Basically what you're doing. Turns out that that's not very aerodynamic. So this is kind of the problem that you have, like,
boa, grande Nautilus, boa.
Like an hour, right?
Ixi,
Concorde did it. Concorde had to mitigate the heating. And how they mitigated the heating is they basically put expansion joints throughout the fuselage inside the Concorde. So as the plane heated up, it basically warped it and it bent and stretched. There's a gap. There's a bulkhead on the Concorde that's on the flight deck, right? It's on the flight deck where the pilots are and where the passengers are. It's the bulkhead in between. That expanded so much during high speed that and that's what Concorde pilots did. If you ever get a chance to go and look at a Concorde, right? Look down at the floor. Look down at the floor. See if there's a hatch.
Eu matava os dois. Eu matava os dois. Se tivesse saído o Qzinho.
Richie, what's up, dude? Also, shameless plug for Concorde. Literally one of the best, or I would say it's tied with the 747 for the best passenger plane ever made.
Eu matava os dois se tivesse saído o Qzinho.
Yeah, 747 is in a close second, but you get the idea. I mean, Concorde's fast, but not every passenger plane can carry a space shuttle. The only Concorde that got repainted with an advert had even worse overheating issues. Yeah. Exactly, Kamir. They in the 90s. They painted a Concorde in Pepsi livery, and the Concordes were designed to be white. And when you're building something that's this aerodynamically complicated, right? When you're building something this when you're building something like this, Carl Ford took this picture. Always give credit. Credit where credit is due. When you're building something this complicated, nothing is there to look good. The Concorde was painted white because white paint diffuses heat. So this Concorde had overheating problems when they painted it blue because the blue paint couldn't disperse the heat. It absorbed more heat than the white paint. True story. Good point. Also, shameless plug. Once again, shameless plug for one, like pretty much the single greatest passenger plane ever made. Hey, what's up, man? Wow, that's a weird shaped Pepis can. Ah, fresh Pepis.
O Brand tá fazendo lá, você acabou de ver o
Yeah, I like
Gordinho lá.
Man. Can't. This is the best type of plane.
Eu tenho os instrumentos para esse trabalho.
Or C-47. I mean, that's definitely up there with the greatest passenger planes ever made. Did you guys know, just on a quick side note, DC-3 is a spite? It was made out of spite? Seriously. Boeing built their, at the time, mid-sized passenger plane, right? I think it was like a Model 207 or something. And Douglas looked at that and said, wow, that thing's tough. We can build a better plane. And they did. Yeah, it's a little more complicated than that. But yeah, DC-3 is basically a spike story because Boeing built a plane that was really good, and Douglas was like, you know what, man? We can build a better plane. And then they did. Hilarious story. Aerodynamics-wise, every year I save all the pictures, it's really, dude, the flow viz that they use helps, where they throw like money on one car and drive it around and see how the aerodynamics works is really cool. Watch your Epcot.
Estou com uma pista
probably watch the
quente.
VOD, dude. It's a place that's super near and dear to my heart.
Boa, pegamos drag.
Seriously think going to Israel and seeing that and catching space. Same time they spent $5 million on Concorde color rebrand. Pepsi also spent $5 million on an advert to be shown on the movie. Yeah, Alice, I remember that. Yeah.
Tenho todos eles na minha.
We got the plugin list for City Skylines. Exclamation point cities mods for all the mini stuff. I have a bunch of like small mods in there. Like I have the cars in the game are like between like Euro and American stuff. I have American cars in there. Generally American cities. One of these days, guys, I'll tackle building a European city. That's something I've been wanting to do for a while. Building a Euro-styled city with the Euro themes that are in the game, because I've been right now I've been really dealing with just building American stuff, like building American stuff, like older American cities, and then Midwestern stuff, and then like, I mean Epcot, I don't even know.
Agora já tenho item pro meu, pra minha GP, tem dinheiro pra minha
Yeah,
GPC.
I'd love to like dive in and build like a canal city
Dá
or
pra
something.
agressivar agora.
Like I'll make a map
Agora dá pra agressivar.
that purposely perpetually floods, right? And you have to find ways to mitigate it. Yeah, I'll do that.
Aliado foi eliminado.
Yeah, there's Eastwood. Yeah, where we just decided to reclaim some of the ocean. Yeah, Yarg, I'll do a more realistic version of that one of these days. So something like Venice or something like Amsterdam, or code? No, I never dived into software stuff. I would love to. Software engineering is engineering, dude. So I mean, it's the same type of thought process as like building a rocket, which I think is cool. Actually, you know what city I would really want to try and mimic? Something like this. Something that's in a estuary, I think is what it's called. Something like Antwerp. That would be cool. I would like to do that. But we'll finish that one. Like, forgive me guys, I don't know which river this is. I'm sure somebody knows. Yeah, this Rosacia would be a good example. I don't know if that really is that Northern European. Is that St. Petersburg is way up there? Yeah, same idea. It's called the river. But yeah, see, like, I'll have to make a map that's like a huge like this. That's all lowland. Lowland. Yeah, that's something like that. Basically, I would like to try and make a map that perpetually floods. Midlands, Lowland. Rotterdam is cool too, because Rotterdam has a huge. Yeah, see, build something like this. Do like a heavy shipping industry and build docks and like build the oil industry up like we did. Like, I don't think this is oil industry. I think these are shipyards for container and shipping and stuff. But build up like huge shipyards and have cargo terminals all over the place and make a shipping depot. I'm American and I say it that way. Actually, Europe is mostly kind of like that. Not very specific to Europe, but yeah, I mean, once again, I'm trying to mimic. I would like to mimic something like this. Actually, you know what would be a good one?
Olé, olé. Dei um belo olé nela.
The Duel.
Ah, também eu estou com bota. Aí é fácil, né?
We can make something like this.
Botinha é
all
fácil.
the ports and everything, right? And all the shipping lanes. And we already have the Dole nuclear power plant.
Botinha fica bem
So
fácil.
we can put the nuclear reactor in. Remember the one that I made in Rockwood that uses this? You have a BWR reactors, towers and stuff. It's pretty cool. Avalanche, 21 months of sub. Master of burials. We can do Venice too, but I mean, yeah, but, I mean, this is like, and I know it's more complicated than this, Dutch guy. Is there like a wall around this? Oh no, okay, there is. I know that there's some old European cities out there that still have like walls. Is that one of the cities that has it? Either way, yeah, we could do that one of these days. It would be fun.
Estou com uma
I keep seeing towns that less than historic.
Certo.
They built a bigger one. Doesn't matter. But yeah, that kind of stuff. Anyway, that was a long space news, but it was filled with other things. I hope you enjoyed kind of just the random EJ education hour, I guess, is what it is now. But with some space news, particularly Burgess, it's called the Belgian Venice. Cinnamon, yeah, dude, we'll do a deep dive into like city stuff on Monday or whatever. Once again, let's finish Epcot first. We'll finish that project, and then maybe the next one can be a European-style city. If you look closely, most of Portsmouth is on an island. There's a narrow tidal channel separated. Blips and chips! Education hour is the best hour. With the swamp River cities, I tried to figure out a way to make a map that's perpetually running. But it turns out that it's a little difficult to do with cities. But I'm sure because you can't mimic.
First break.
Hey. Yeah, Thomas. Okay, yeah. The last thing. So, the last thing is that if you look at the white room, so the white room is it's kind of like the pivoting walk-in closet that they use to get into the capsule. The white room is like generally a clean room, so it's a room where people are wearing scrubs and stuff because they don't want like dirt and stuff going into the capsule. Thomas noticed that it looks like the part that attaches to the capsule, right? Like you have this kind of locked piece. Okay? It looks like this piece right here. On one side has the portal that goes, the access portal that goes into Starliner, right? This is how you get to the hatch of the vehicle, right? It looks like it's on tracks. You see that? It very much looks like it's on rollers. What are the tiles for? It's the thermal protection system, Owens. Starliner uses shuttle parts. I mean, the heat shield is a carbon ablator, if I remember right, but the auxiliary thermal protection systems on Starliner are shuttle parts. That's Nomex tile that was used during the shuttle program. And that's HRSI silicon tiles. Those are shuttle tiles. They're not actually shuttle tiles. They're tiles that are derived from the space shuttle that they optimize to work on Starliner. But those are shuttle tiles. They're derived. Hey, CN, what's going on? So, once again, do you notice that it looks like this piece can be driven up and down? Like, I'm not sure why they do that, because they're launching one type of rocket. Only Atlas is designed for Starliner. Or is it? Killed by wild speculation now. Really? That's what it's for? Late loading on Green Chase right Good spot by Thomas. And thanks, Ian. I appreciate the clarification. That's really cool to see.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
So, the crew access arm can be modified for not one,
Desculpe, rapaz.
but two different
Deixa
types.
minhas algemas fazer isso em casa.
Apparently, tier 245 month resub. Danke schön, mein Freund. Gates. These pictures are pretty cool. What's that? Oh yeah, the side-by-side. The side-by-side is pretty baller. This tweet is coming from the Nautilus account, Slick 4.
Matei o Nautilus, mas...
It's the Starliner.
Tô bom.
I mean, the Dragon 2 with the crew access arm on top of the Falcon 9, and Starliner with its crew access arm right next to each other. Dude, that's... Dude. We're on the verge.
Putz,
like,
olha o farm de naves como tá.
Last year, or actually, I shouldn't say in the past. Last year, we went from having no manned spacecraft to having two, but you know what? Let's change that. Let's just say in the next year, the U.S. is not just gonna have one, but two, and if you go right, 3 ways. Different spacecraft that are totally redundant to each other. Starship. First of all, Richie, okay, it's a lot more fun. Not the best astronomy guy, but long and also support the note that galaxy or that galaxy or whatever star or whatever probably went supernova and fizzed out probably close to like a couple years ago. It takes light a long time to couple million
Eu
years.
tenho os instrumentos pra
Yeah,
isso.
that's how big the universe is, man. So light is delayed. We have an input lag in the night sky by a couple million years. So like stuff like the pillars of creation, a nebula, that small pillars, right? One of my favorite pictures actually from space. That nebula collapsed, from what I understand. It's like something out of a dream.
Vou mostrar pra eles como sou bala no escuro.
That's nebulas, man. Nebulas make stars. Once again, that's every time I look at this picture, all that pops into my head is know your place. Know your place, you stupid human. Like, so, okay, if our solar system was superimposed onto this picture, you wouldn't even be able to see it. It's literally probably like
I will answer you
the
some.
size of a millionth of a pixel. Yeah, that's how big that is. Wish you were here. Dude, if I had the chance to go and see this with my own eyes, I mean, we can't. The nebula collapsed. The pillars of creation don't exist anymore. At least we think. I'm pretty sure the astronomy
mais 300, mais 300 pra Gumi.
It's not there anymore. I believe them.
Thank you.
It's the Hubble Deep Field picture, dude. The Hubble Deep Field picture. The universe is so ridiculously big. This represents, like, if you took like a wide pan shot of the entire night sky, right, and focused on something pretty much smaller, like as big as a pixel. So say you have a wide pan shot of like the night sky, and it's like 5,000 by 1,000, like a huge wide angle shot of the night sky, right? This is like less than 1 pixel. Look at all the dang, look at all that. Stars, galaxies, look at all that crap. Nebula, it's like less than like one 2700th of the night sky. Like I'm making these numbers up because I'm not a good astronomy guy, but the numbers are hyperbole on my part to emphasize scale. Like the universe is big. It's a big place. Coming up next year. Yep. Soon, man. Soon. It's crazy. It's crazy how big it is. And once again, it's, like I said, I think it's important to know your place in the universe and not have to feel that way. Neighbor, I'm looking at you. What is our purpose? Nothing? I wouldn't say nothing. That's its conversation. Not about our purpose. But that's... You passed, bud. Know your place.
Ai, ai, que complicado. Era pro WW. Cada lá do nada. Muitos stacks, tá?
Quer ver truque de mágica?
Once again, like I said, dude, everything, all that garbage that we deal with down here, everything, dude, stuff that makes you mad, stuff that doesn't make you happy, that's all. And I'm not trying to be like, I think having a postmodernist view about this stuff is kind of inherently detrimental to the growth of our species, I guess. Like I said, that's why I just say know your place. An asteroid can come out of nowhere from out from like behind the sun, end everything we've ever known, and like that, done. Goodbye. A coronal mass injection, a solar flare from the sun hits the Earth. Goodbye, atmosphere. See you later. It would look awesome for like probably about 15 minutes, and then it wouldn't. I mean, it's all fine and dandy, but, all the stuff that pisses you off down here, all the stuff that, makes you happy down here, like, I mean, try to make it work, I guess. None of that stuff matters. Let's make it matter, right? I mean, that's what Elon Musk goes on about, and that's why I like him. You know, we should go to Mars, just as kind of a, you know, a safety point to perpetuate the species in case one of the planets gets destroyed. We still have another one. Because once again, Earth is our home. It's our spaceship, right? It's our spaceship that's in a parking orbit around the sun. But also at the same time, just like NASA shouldn't have one form of manned spaceflight transportation. If it fails, you have no way of getting it fixed. We should probably not put all of our eggs in one basket. I don't think that's a wise decision. And once again, I'm not trying to give people a bad taste, like,
Errar?
you know. Make it stuff that's important to you. Yeah, that's part of the reason why I do what I do. Generate versus a quasar, blah blah. Yeah, dude, we could get taken out real quick. In fact, we're overdue for I was about to say a distinction, but I don't want to be that is coming. Comet or mass projection or something. It's been too long.
Morreu pra 2. Pra 2 foi triste.
And don't get me wrong, I would never ever want anything to happen. I think we have a pretty good right now. We need to do better. We are the geological extinction. That's deep. Yeah. Either way, in a couple million years, the sun will go supernova and it'll obliterate all life in the solar system. You know, it's the whole burnout to fade away. Dude, long story short, the sun may have, you know, given us, you know, life and stuff, and I appreciate you for that, son. But also, it can giveth and it can taketh away. It will in a couple million years. We know that. That's proven. So let's best be focusing on getting the heck away from it when it does. It's like Master Chief on the final level of Halo 1. You know, if the reactor goes critical, it'll generate a temperature of 100 million degrees.
Não tem nada pra fazer lá, sai daí.
Good call. A couple billion years. Okay, long story short, it's a long way away, but I'm not hedging my bets against that exploding fusion ball in the sky.
Killing spree.
The F-Love from Chernobyl the thing. I don't want that. The sun didn't explode because it isn't there, because it's nighttime. Get this man to the Inferno. Jokes. Alright, Kerbal time, let's go.
Killing spree.
I hope that's not the mistake. I hope that, you know, we might not be here in 5 billion years because we've explored the universe.
Go and throttle up.
I want that. Halo time. Have one. Once starts something, it's funny because, you know, once something starts inconveniencing people, that's when the problem gets solved fast.
Desculpe, rapaz.
Interesting, right?
Deixei minhas algemas de pelúcia em casa.
Solaire, 10 months and going strong. Thanks, man. Is anyone else getting a noticeable AV desync?
Certo.
Is anybody else getting some desync? OBS isn't showing you today. Hard to see a legit problem. That's very true, Darkside.
Quer ver truque de mágica?
It's very true. That's a very, very apt way of looking at that. It's true. Gary, I'm not sure, dude. Alright. It seems like we haven't played KSP in a long time. Actually, like I haven't played in a week. I think like the longest I've gone. bits! Thanks, Graham. I appreciate it, man. Dude, I still gotta shoot you that info for that thing that comes.
Sua equipe destruiu uma torre.
I gotcha. Covert on KSP today, huh? Yeah? Oh, yeah. How hard would it be to make a Falcon and Halo Reach?
Essa é a
Do you guys want to do like a Wings Wednesday build like that? We could do it. A Falcon would be a little bit on the difficult side. It would take a lot of testing to get it right. The problem with this, and it's the same problem we ran into when we
Eu tenho os instrumentos para esse trabalho.
when I tried to build an Osprey. The problem is control. There's no real good way to. There's no real good way to.
Estou com uma pista quente.
Like have full yaw pitch roll up, down, forward, and back control with something like that. Now, how an Osprey works, look at a V22, which is probably the closest thing we have to that right now, right? Have you made a Star Miner? I have not. We're going to build the 88. We're doing that in May. The thing is, with an Osprey, the propellers are not like just a block that spins. These things are basically top assembly from a helicopter. Like, if you look at a Huey, the helicopter has a very specific design here. And this is, keep in mind, this is a drawing. It has, see this machinery up here? This machinery up here allows variable pitch. That's not helicopters fly. Actually, like swashing. Fly like, you know, like the helicopter, hydraulic motor on a helicopter, or anything like that. Basically, the hydraulic actually now, the launch plate again allows the way to pitch. It allows the collective to control collective blade pitch, and the cyclic to control cyclic blade pitch as the rotor cycles around the helicopter. Okay? The V22 has those. It has two basically assemblies from a helicopter attached to the front of an engine from a C-130. So when the thing is hovering, if you wanted to go to the right or go to the left, you cycle the pitch on the blades to when the blades are spinning, like this is as they spin. When the blades are over here, they're pitched higher than they would be over here, and that makes it so the blade lifts on this side and doesn't lift on that side, and you can translate left and right, or you could do the same thing to go forward and back, or you could use collective pitch on the blades to go up and down, right? They don't really change the throttle on these too much, except if you're flying in plane mode, right? When the V22 is up like this, it has, when the engines are up like this, it has much more in common with this, with the CH-47, than it does with like a regular airplane. When the engines are tilted forward, it's more like an airplane. You have like throttle and stuff and blade pitch, like a Q400 or something. So the tilt part, the Falcon from Halo Reach doesn't do that, okay? Not fan art. Why did it populate that one? The Falcon from Halo Reach doesn't have that. I don't think it has. I don't think it will forward, but it does look like they are articulated. Okay, and that's fine. You'll articulate dodge forward, you're up. Take the end, one back. We can center thrust in a way that will dodge track. Tilt these things forward. Tilt these things a little bit forward, the craft will go forward, albeit at a slow speed, but it'll go forward. So that's pitch. We got pitch on the we got yaw figured out.
É, vou fazer rei, não dá pra kaitar não.
Changing the differential RPMs here. So when you induce roll, you have to power down one roller just barely to get it to go left and right. That's
Sua equipe destruiu uma torre.
kind of difficult to do, but I mean, we can do that. Now, like, it's difficult. That'll take a lot of work to get that right, but you'd need to use Cal controllers, or you can make this thing that I made in May.
Vou fazer rei, não dá pra kaitar não, de...
Esta é a arma da lei.
Operas are cool. It's a cool design. Very complicated. I forgot to watch a stream that put on Osprey.
Vamos investigar.
Very complicated. We could use blade pitch to roll. I'd rather use differential RPM. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think this is possible. It looks like the Falcons from Halo also have a horizontal propulsion system. So instead of a tilt rotor, they have little engines, like small engines that out back right here that push. You're running into another problem with this thing though. Engines mounted on the top like this need to be pointing through the center of mass. And while the center of mass on this thing is probably a little bit higher because all the hollow spaces where the people go are low, I would say that this thing's center of mass is somewhere around where my mouse is. Just by looking at it. Once again, I get it, it's a sci-fi ship, but if we're going to make it in Kerbal, we need to figure out a way to make it work with real aerodynamics. Real aerodynamics. Center of mass is probably up there somewhere.
Eu tenho os instrumentos para
You're
isso.
going to run into a problem with these thrusters. If they're not pointed through the center of mass, you're
aliado foi eliminado.
just going to push down and crash. That's cool, Irving.
Sua equipe destruiu uma torre.
You know, it's doable.
Hora da
I think you can do it, but you run it, once again, you run into stability and control issues in hover mode. Yeah, you run into some pretty hard stability issues with this thing. Because look, looking at it from this side profile really drives that home. Like, actually, those engines are tilted downwards. They shouldn't be tilted downwards like that to go through the center of mass unless it's going to cause a lever effect. Actually, tilt it down. It's weird. You know what I think about Halo? They actually put some thought into it. I don't know if the guys at Bungie that designed these things knew. It seems like they weren't like 100% on aerodynamics, but they had an idea. Like, if you're gonna mount your engines up like this, up above your center of mass, you run into a pretty bad inherent stability problem. When you go to throttle up, if your center of mass is here and your center of thrust is here, guess what it's gonna do? It's gonna make you nose to the ground. But if the center of mass is somewhere right here, these engines, which will force you into the ground, will be counteracted by the thrust from the blades, and that'll make the thing fly straight. So, like I said, they made it a thing to make these engines where the numbers are to be pointed downwards. And if your engine on top of it has the area, so the thrusters have a seat right? And the engines are mounted on top of it. The engines are tilted. Pointed this way. The engines are pointed up. It's very, very slight. But then again, so is the Falcon. It's very, very, very slight tilt up. If you're going to put engines on the top of your craft, so that solves the forward control problem. What about how do we recover translate to the right without math problems? Lower the throttle, lower the RPM on one, and that would roll. You'd actually control on the vehicle.
Boa, galera! Boa, 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 boa.
Swash plates could do it. Yeah, Core, but we'd have to actually make the swash plate, which could be inherently difficult. Once again, I'm not against going and trying to make this. You know? I'm not against that. We could do it, but that's going to be a multi-day project, and it's going to be a lot of building and testing, and I'm not sure if that's exactly what people want to see. I mean, like, people are... You guys are vested in the career mode stuff right now, from what I understand.
GG! GG, game! GG. Puta que... Olha isso! Fui top gold disparado do time. Top
See,
gold
like, I
disparado.
built the KE200 in Kerbal before, and I had to tilt the
É,
engines
Rei me
for it to
salvou.
work right, and it does work.
Me salvou bastante o rei.
Yeah, SAS is how... SAS will do it, Yarg, but that, like I said, that's like... Really? SAS? Like, the real
No
things
finalzinho
don't
foi
use
quase.
stability assist for...
A Soraka lá
for
curando
gyro
atrás.
stabilization
E o pessoal todo batendo no Nasus na frente. Eu não podia bater na Soraka, porque senão o Nasus me matava. Mas o pessoal ficou todo batendo no Nasus. Mas se o pessoal virasse na Soraka, aí eu continuava dando CC no Nasus pra parar. Essa foi boa a partida, foi boa. Oh, o Nasus quase carregou. Quase. Foi por pouco. Bom, agora bora lá. Ou não sei se eu vou jogar mais um. Não sei.
Look, in order to translate, in order to strafe left and right, you're going to need your center of thrust to go far enough over to your center of mass to be over here somewhere. So either I make the engines, we can make the engines do this if we wanted to. We could make them tilt out like this, and that would, I mean, we'd still roll a little bit, but that could do it. If we had like a small hinge here. No, it should crab. See, yeah, it gets, once again, it gets pretty complicated. Yeah, Duvin, exactly. Mounting the engines on joints, so if you yawed to the right, like, if you're yawing this way, one engine would tilt, just out just a little bit. I mean, that would, if it tilted out, that would actually make you roll to the left. If we made the engines both do this, that would make you also roll to the left. See, this gets complicated. That's the problem with, like, building stuff like Ospreys that I have in KSP. You either have to use SAS, so you either have to use SAS to compensate, or you need to build a swash plate. People have built swash plates with the robotics. It's doable. When are we getting a Reach game together? I'm not sure, Geek. I'm sure we'll find some time to do it. Yeah. Once again, yeah, the Osprey build. I remember this thing. Yeah, this thing has the capability of storing its engines too. We were gonna have the ability for this thing to be able to fold up, and then I designed a custom fuselage for it out of triangular panels to make it look like it, or look something like it. I should do something with this thing. This is a cool vehicle. It's a cool looking vehicle. Yeah, Geek, you told me. Cristiano, it's possible. It's very, very difficult. It's tough. So, like, once again, I've made other VTOL vehicles in the past. The VTOL vehicles, like the Tuk-Tuk, for instance, use SAS to stabilize. And, oh, that's the Kraken Tech version of it. I don't want that. Like, see, I have gyros built into the engines, so it can naturally stabilize that way in lieu of a reaction control system. Would it be easier to start with SASs today and then upgrade to swash plates later? Drop pass, that would be like designing a bike from the start to work with training wheels. You build the bicycle first, then you add the training wheels later. Yeah, it would, yeah, we could do it, but it would be difficult. Where's the other version of the Tuk-Tuk that has the robotics built into it? 29B2, yeah, there it is. Yeah, there's the one with the hydraulics, or with the robotics built into it. Yeah, but the Osprey is so cool. You'll get no argument from me, Cristiano. I love Ospreys, dude, and that's kind of like, in terms of building airplanes and stuff, that's my freaking unicorn, man. It's hard. They're hard to make. They're very difficult. I know how they work. I had to go on a deep dive to figure out how the freaking thing works. And I figured it out with, believe it or not, I figured it out with the help of people that actually worked on the thing. That was the... It's difficult. If you really want to get into the meat and potatoes of how one of those things fly, it's complicated. There's a reason why they ran into some trouble with the avionics at first, because... Dude, getting everything... There's no way you could... It has to have a computer controlling it. There is no way that you could mechanically control, completely 100% mechanically control an Osprey. There's just no way. It's too complicated to control everything at once. You need fly-by-wire to do it. It's like the B-2. The B-2 can't fly without a computer. Without a computer interpreting the input from the pilot. Fly this? Oh, you want to see me fly it real quick? Sure, no problem. This is in my engineering mode save. This isn't the career mode thing, but yeah, we can do it. Do I have the CAL controllers installed on this thing? Actually, I don't think I have a CAL. I think it's just bound to, yeah, forward and back. All right, cool. My father ran twin-engine tugboats. He was able to make them move sideways by reversing one engine and applying rudder in the opposite direction. Yeah, Locust, I mean, that's doable. Tuck for what? See, this uses gyroscopes for control. If I toggle the torque on these things, it becomes impossible to fly. Well, possible enough. But long story short, you need the gyroscopes for it to work. Because Jeb was inverted. Yeah, I kind of miss the mission mode shenanigans, not gonna lie. Green, I'd like to start introducing, like, Kerbal Fun Days where we do stuff like this. But yeah, SAS is what keeps the tuk-tuk working. Jeb would land like that. Boink. Well, we made it. I like career, but do you have a timeline when you're going to be spending more time on the pads? I'd like to build Jepstone a pad for late-loading science payloads, Baseball, or at least some type of fixed service structure for the rocket. The reason is because, you know what I really want to do? A cool thing to do with, and if you're wondering why this is here, this is an old elevator that I built, and it uses landing gear for actuation. And there's other tuk-tuks down inside of the bay here. This is an Azimuth class carrier. I built it to explore Kerbin. We could bring this into career mode. I wouldn't have a problem bringing this in. I'd have to replace all this with robotics and stuff to bring in. We could bring the part count down. Totally doable. And we could also use it as a mobile relay. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But maybe we'll do it some other day. Do you plan to stream Surviving Mars? Not really. Inverted, you say? Nice. Yeah, that's the tuk-tuk. It's a cool little design. But once again, entirely dependent on probe core gyroscopes for stabilization. Which, I mean, I've never heard of a... And then here's its bigger brother, by the way. I've never heard of a... Do I have the dampening turned down on these? No, I don't. I've never heard of a gyroscopically stabilized hovering vehicle. Like, yeah, never heard of that. Hey, bet your first profitable city yesterday and accidentally killed it through overexpansion. Optimal? Prime advice for new cities players. You know, roam